Have you heard the saying, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard? You and your talents isn't simply about recognizing your talents, but more about turning them into strengths so that your hard work can be more productive. And like my guest last Saturday said, the foundation of productivity is understanding yourself. Today's guest, Foluso, has spent many years teaching people how to turn their talents into strengths using the Gallup's Clifton Strengths methodology, of which I am a happy recipient, as it was in one of her workshops that I experienced one of the most insightful eureka moments of my adult life. Foluso Gbadamosi is a business and technology professional who currently works as the executive director at Junior Achievement in Nigeria. She's an author, speaker, trainer, and like I said earlier, also a Gallup certified strengths coach who helps individuals leverage their talents to achieve greater performance in different areas of their lives. She serves on the board of directors of Swift Networks, Cosent Technologies, Kudu Bank, the advisory board of School Media, and is a trustee at Serving with Love Foundation. Foluso has had numerous awards given to her by various women empowerment organizations. Welcome, Foluso.
Hello, Feran. Thank you for having me. I'm great. I'm so happy to be here with you.
I'm excited you're here. This is like a long-awaited interview.
Yes.
So the fact that we're doing this now is super
exciting.
duper. Yeah. First thing, what are talents?
Okay, so let's get right into it. A talent is a natural ability that has freely been given to you, to me, to all of us by God, right? So it's not something that we can suddenly wish for and it appears. It's already in us. It's innate, right? So before you were born, it was in you. And so talents are those natural abilities, those natural skills as well, you could say, that we've all just been freely given. So the things that we essentially do naturally.
So what's the difference between talents and strengths?
Excellent question. So your strength is when you take your talent, so that natural ability that you have, and you intentionally develop it, then it becomes a strength. So if I was to use the example of Oprah Winfrey, one of my favorite examples, Oprah Winfrey obviously has a talent in communication. I mean, if you've ever seen her or heard her speak, you know that. But you can see that from when she started up until now. I mean, she was good then, but now it's like, wow, Oprah is just on a different level. Oprah has taken that talent of communication and she has very intentionally developed it. She's worked in, communication jobs in the media and doing all those things has gotten her to the point now where when you think about media, you think about the queen of media, as they like to call her, you think about Oprah Winfrey because she has taken that particular talent and she has clearly developed it into a strength, into revenue. And that's what happens actually, ultimately, when you are intentional with your talents, they become what you are known for.
I see.
So many of us can develop skills, right? So there's also a difference between skills and talents. So I can develop a skill of communication, but somebody like Oprah who has a talent of communication, coupled with her developing it then becomes a strength. All of us can communicate, obviously, and we can all do it in better ways. But there's a difference between you having it as an innate talent, which is supposed to be something that really propels you in life. It's almost like you have been given the opportunity to make it in life with your talents. The problem...
But do you know your talents?
So therein lies the problem. Many of us don't know our talents. Many of us have been groomed in societies where talents were very limited, right? So I remember when I was growing up, as an example, just a few years ago, because I'm super young.
Yes, you are.
I know, right? Talents were things like you can sing, you can act, you can dance. Very few people really went deep into really studying talents. Now that it's been studied a lot more, talents are things like your patterns of thinking. People that just think really effectively, really orderly, that's a talent. People that have a very positive outlook on life, that's a talent. People that are able to naturally influence others, that's a talent. In fact, there's some people that you see them doing some things and you're like, how do they do that? A lot of those things are innate and they might not even know that it's a talent because it just happens so naturally. So we actually take our talents for granted because it's innate. It's just in us, I didn't do anything. So I feel like, is this something? It's not until maybe through working or school or experiences that you realize, oh wow, that might actually be something. and you now become intentional about building upon that it now becomes something that you can really be propelled in life with. But most people don't know their talents, and therein lies the real issue, just like you said.
So, like you said a few minutes ago, a lot of the traditional talents, if I can call them that, was singing, acting,
very
those types of
visible things.
Yes. But you're now saying that talents are also the non-traditional things.
Absolutely.
I don't know if that even makes sense. But the fact that I am good at negotiating.
Yes, that is a talent.
That's a talent.
Absolutely. The fact that you're good at organizing, that is a talent.
Some people say that's OCD.
So every talent has two sides, as with everything in life. There's a good side and there's a not so good side. Gallup will call it the balcony and the basement. The balcony part is the great part. The basement is you are getting into the dark side. All of us have the ability to take any of our talents in either direction, right? So for instance, even with communication as a talent, it seems like a great talent, right? But you can also just be communicating and you're not listening to it. Like you're just talking and you're not taking in from anybody around you. So with every talent, you have to be balanced in your mind when you know what your talent is and know when to, I like to say, turn it up and turn it down, right? So for instance, organizing. Some people can say it's OCD. Maybe when you're hanging around the basement of your talents, you are maybe stressing everybody out. You as an individual, and this, all goes back to self-awareness. When you know your talents, you know how to manage them better. You know the opportunities or the areas or the times when you need to turn some things up, and you know when it's kind of time to turn things down a little bit. Organizing is an excellent talent. I mean, let me just use one example that I think all of us know about these days, event planners. Event planners in Nigeria now, I mean, let's kind of just focus, I guess, on this part of the world, are really making a lot of money because there's a lot of events going on, and many people do not know how to organize events. The average person doesn't. In recent years, we've seen that people have taken that very seriously, that, you know what, organizing events is not for me, it's not for everybody. I might not have a talent in it, somebody does, let me hire somebody else to do it. Those people that are able to come to you and curate your event, they are able to think through things that you can't think about. They're able to see things that you cannot think about. They're able to bring people together to form a team to give you an excellent event. That is a talent.
But just like you've used event planners as an example.
Yes.
I would then say, go back to the balcony and the basement. Balcony being the top, basement being the bottom.
Yes.
There are a lot of very good event planners, but there are also a lot of very bad event planners.
Absolutely.
And they all seem to be making money. So I'm not quite sure I understand that as an example, because what about the very bad ones?
So we're not, okay, for the sake of this conversation, we're not classifying people as good or bad, because if we do that, then I feel like that's a separate conversation, because that's almost like saying, some teachers, not every teacher is great, like some are great and some are bad.
Yes.
Or, some people on TV, some are great and some are bad.
Yeah.
Going back to the first example of like an Oprah Winfrey, I mean, there are people on TV that some people are just like, why is that person on TV? I think that every field or every industry has, different kinds of people. The point here is that if you as an individual look at yourself and you're able to analyze yourself and, do what it needs self-discovery wise to figure out what your talents are, and you're intentional about developing them, that's when they become a strength. Now, when they become a strength, and that takes time, it's a process. So this is not a, overnight, let's snap our fingers, we're the microwave generation, popcorn, instant popcorn kind of a thing. No, it's a whole lifetime process of you are using it over and over again. It's like a muscle. For those that go to the gym, I don't really, so let me not pretend. But it's like developing a muscle, right?
Yeah.
Like the more you use it, the more it develops. So when it comes to like an event planner, there are some that maybe they are making money, but they're still developing. One thing that you would notice about most people that are very good at what they do, right? And you can think about so many different people. You can even think about like even people in tech, like Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, even like Steve Jobs. Is that when they started, they had that talent. But when you look at them 10, 20 years down the line, you can see the intentionality in directing that talent in a way that has propelled them further. Another example, you see somebody like Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg created Facebook when he was at Harvard, which he didn't spend very long at because he dropped out, right? And he created it as a way for university students to kind of just stay in touch with one another. It wasn't supposed to be what it is now. He clearly has a very strategic thinking brain. He comes up with solutions, he's able to solve problems, but he's not a people person. at all is even obvious. You know, like if you ever see him, there was a time that he was being interviewed by the US government over like some things. You could see his body language, like he's not very comfortable in those kinds of situations. But what he did with his ideas was that he then created a company and hired people with talents that could build a company.
Yeah.
And it goes with a lot of other tech founders. You find that a lot of them don't have the people skills.
Yeah.
So they find people that have that because we're all different. I think that the point here is that we all have to recognize that every single person, first of all, has talents. Not even one, they have multiple. We're all not the same. Everybody has that thing that if we all kind of bring it together, it makes the world what the world is supposed to be. The problem is that many times we look at other people and we covet their talents, right? So I'm looking at you, Feran, and I'm like, oh, Feran's running this show. I want to run a show, but I don't have the talent to run a show, you know? Or, you know, I look at Oprah Winfrey, I want to be Oprah, but you don't have Oprah's style. Because even with Oprah, just to segue a little bit, when Oprah started her career, she was fired for not being fit for TV, fired from a particular role. She was a newscaster.
Yeah.
And Oprah has very high empathy in her. So apparently as a newscaster, she would really get very involved, you know, in people's, you know, in their situations. If there's a fire, she can go to her house and go and take all the blankets in her house, go and give them at the, you know. But with her show, what you see is that she didn't let being fired from that stop her path, stop what God had gifted her with. She just channeled it in a different way. And that's why her show is so powerful, because Oprah is able to connect with people in a way that many people cannot.
Is empathy a talent?
Oh yes, empathy is a talent, according to Gallup. So for the sake of this conversation, the talents are the 34 Gallup talents, and empathy is a talent. And Oprah certainly has it. It's obvious. Because when Oprah is talking to somebody, the way she connects with them, I can't even pretend. Empathy is like my number 32 talent, so I can't even pretend. She does it in a way that is amazing. And that's why people watch her show and they can almost enter the television, and her show was so successful. And even now, you know, she's doing these different things that you can see that her ability to feel people's pain propels a lot of the things that she actually does.
I see.
Yes.
So let me ask you this. What are the pros and cons of not knowing your talents?
Oh dear, I really love this question. So, you know, Feran, if you don't know your talents, I'll tell you what I've noticed happens, is that you find yourself feeling very, I don't want to use the word useless because it sounds major, but I think a lot of people do feel that way. You almost feel like you don't really fit in anywhere. Yeah. You feel like, what am I really here for? Like, so not knowing your talents and not being in situations that brings them out and helps them develop and grow, thrive, the right environment essentially, like a plant, is almost like, it's like planting a strawberry seed in the middle of Lagos in this weather. You know, I remember when I was younger, and I think maybe we traveled and I saw one pack of seeds, some flowers or some flower seeds, and I really liked the flowers. So I said, oh, let me try and plant it when we get back to Lagos. And it didn't grow. because the environment was not suitable for it. You know what I mean? And so that's what happens when you don't discover your talents and you don't use them. You just find yourself not growing. You definitely will have a lot of internal issues. Now, what I've noticed is that for a lot of people, when they're younger, this might not really come up. Because, you know, when you're younger, your focus and your level of needs are a bit different. When you start getting more to self-actualization, you're getting older, you want more out of life. That's when you start seeing people really wondering, am I really in the right place? This work I'm doing, is it really bringing out the best of me? If you find yourself every day drained, either from work or from your business or whatever, and you're not drained because you were doing something that you actually enjoy doing, you're just always drained, then you're not operating in your talent zone, because your talents actually energize you, Feran. So even on your worst day, your talents will energize you.
So how does one begin to recognize their talents?
Beautiful question. So first of all, I think that if you can, take the Clifton Strength Assessment. It's online. You can just Google it. If you don't want to do that, there's other ways as well. So you can ask questions. Ask people around you. Ask your loved ones, what do you guys think I'm good at? If I have a whole list of questions that I typically ask people to kind of just go through. Ask yourself questions as well. What are those things that people have always asked you to do? And it can be random.
I see.
What are those things that whenever you just think about it, people, even when you are annoyed, you're like, why do people keep asking me to do this? I'm tired. When you say I'm tired of people asking me to do this, then you are in a good place. Because they're asking you to do it because you're good at it. You might not recognize that, but they do. ask yourself what it is that maybe you've been celebrated about the most in your life. And this is not about academics, right? This is just about, just something. Because for many people as well, somebody made a point the other day about how there are some people that even from nursery school, you can tell that they're going to be leaders. Because when they ask something in class, or maybe when they ask them to kind of, you gather a bunch of toddlers together and you say they should do something, and you see the one person that's clearly trying to lead the pack.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, it kind of shows. So ask yourself questions from your past, from when you were much younger. What are those things that have always just stood out about you? What are those things that even though you didn't recognize it, people have always said that you're good at? What are those things that when other people don't want to do it, you actually don't mind doing it?
So when you do that, okay, you've asked yourself,
Yes.
You've asked other people, you've come up with a list of talents. What next?
Great. Now, when you come up with the list of talents, what you need to do is start to have some very honest conversations with yourself. And I will start with asking yourself on a daily basis. So let's paint a picture here. Let's say that, you are somebody who is, let's say in your early 30s, you're living in a city, you're working, right? And you've asked all these questions. Then ask yourself every day, when the day is over, what energized you and what drained you that day?
Oh, okay.
Yes. So what I've noticed is that when you get intentional about recognizing the things that energize and drain you, and even the people, you are getting pointers in the direction of not just your talents, but also your values, right? Yes, because what happens is that, and you know the way it is, the older you get, the more you really kind of flourish into who it is that you're really supposed to be, even if sometimes we might fight it, right? You begin to recognize the patterns of your life. You begin to understand that, you know what, even though I never thought about it, or I never really, figured it out, going to this particular place actually always drains me, or this kind of work actually always drains me. So I'll use another example in that. So I studied computer science for my first degree.
Okay. And
I'm a full-fledged extrovert. I'm just such an extrovert. Like, I can be tired, drained. I see people and I'm like, yay!
Yeah.
People, like that's just
you
me.
say hello to people with smiley faces.
All the time. I'm always just so happy, and you just can't stop it. But it's innate. I can't help myself. So if you say you want to be like me, I feel bad for you because you will be drained unless you are wired like me. So if an introvert says, oh, I just want to be like that, you can't. It's not like, don't even do it to yourself. You know what I mean? Because you can't. It's just how God made me. Anyway, so I went and I studied computer science, right? Because, I like tech things, and my dad always bought me tech gadgets, and that's a different story. And so I thought, oh, I would do computer science. Then I started working, and my first job was testing code at a telecommunications company. And Feran, I wanted to kill myself. I'm joking, not really. But I wanted to literally pull out my hair.
Yeah.
And you know what? In retrospect, so then I didn't realize it because I wasn't as introspective as I am now. But in retrospect, it's because that job was a very me and the computer kind of a job. That's not my personality. I get energy from people. So every day I was drained. I was drained every day, and I didn't know why. My favorite part of that job was going to lunch with my coworkers. We used to plan lunches, and I remember I used to be so excited, and we could spend, we'll spend an hour at lunch, and we would have such a great time. And that energy I got from lunch, I would take it into the job, but then that job wasn't for me. So that was literally me not operating in my talent zone at all.
When did you then realize that it was the...
So the blessing was that I wanted to go back to school and get a master's. So I left the job to get a master's. But I didn't realize this whole pattern up until I started self-discovery. And I got a lot more self-aware. And that's when I started to realize that your personality type, your talents, your values, all these things make you who you are. You literally are taking life out of yourself if you are not operating in your talent zone. Because you'll just be drained every day. Sometimes people even get sick. There's a coaching client that I had, sick, actually physically sick. Just not from working in a talent zone, because every day he was drained. You understand what I mean? He was able to do the job, but he was drained every day. And so you have to ask yourself, just back to the question, what really drains you and what really energizes you? And be very honest with yourself about it. Now, that this doesn't mean that you should go and quit your job if you discover that perhaps your job is really draining you. You might have to make a plan. And the plan sometimes, if you're a big boy or a big girl and you have bills to pay, is what are you going to do, out of that particular job? So if you're going to look for a new job, like what kind of job are you going to look for? Or if you're going to work that same job, how do you do it differently? Because the other thing as well is that sometimes when you discover your talents, it helps you be more productive on the job. It always helps you be more productive on the job, for sure. But in that particular type of a job, you might figure out a better way to do it.
I see what you mean. So you see, this conversation is a conversation that can go on forever. And sadly, as always, we've run out of time. Yeah.
No!
Yeah.
I feel like I've been talking and talking.
No, but you have shared some really great insights. So what I want to leave everybody with is, how do we now turn these talents into strengths? What can the person who is watching do as soon as they stop watching to begin to turn their talents into strengths and essentially have a better quality of life? What can you give us, like, a few quick steps as to what they can do to move forward?
Excellent. So the first thing that I advise, honestly, is to do the Clifton Strengths Assessment, because it gives you your report. And I haven't come across anybody yet, at least anybody that I've coached yet, that has seen their reports and has been like, this is not me. I think it's always, and Feran, you know, because
my report was like, oh my God.
It was like they were looking inside you. You're like, what?
I was like, whoa.
Like this cannot be real. I mean, I read mine and I froze. I remember I felt so liberated after I read that report.
Yeah, in my intro, remember I said it was my eureka moment. I have to go back and read my report.
That's it. Everything that I didn't like about myself, that I was confused about myself, things that I didn't even have words for about myself, was in my report, and it helped me own it.
I understood why things were, why certain things were going wrong or went wrong in the past.
Thank you. And you and I talked about that very deeply, you know. So that's what I would say, number one. But if you don't want to do that or you can't do that, I would say the questions. Now, this thing is not a fluff, surface, I don't want to get deep thing. You have to be introspective. Like,
you have to be vulnerable.
You have to be vulnerable, and you have to come outside of yourself and do the work of thinking. You need to ask yourself some very honest questions. And those questions sometimes might trigger some things in you, good and bad. But you have to ask yourself what those things are that you have stood out in. And it can be random. It can be random. And I think last but not the least, you know, for the sake of time, is, for me, energizers and drainers are so important, because many of us are going around living lives and killing ourselves every day without realizing it. By working jobs, being in relationships, and spending time with people that have nothing to do with how God created us to be, or the environment that God created us to be. So trying to literally grow the flowers I got from some random city in America in the middle of Lagos with a very, very different weather. So you have to understand your wiring and yourself. And it is an unapologetic, this is how God made me. I cannot thrive in this situation. Do you understand what I mean? And so you really have to ask yourself those energizers and those drainer questions. In fact, if you make a list of it 1 week, just do it for 1 week, you will get amazing results.
Wow.
Yeah.
And one of the things you just said now that struck is, it's not just about work. It's work, your relationship.
Everything.
So it transcends everything. But then there's also the flip side of, you can say, you know what, I don't really want to delve deep. Yeah. I don't want to be vulnerable. I don't want to know. I want to continue to bury my head in the sand.
That's fine.
And that's okay too.
That's fine.
But at least you're being honest enough with yourself to say, I don't want to bury my head in the sand.
I don't want to know. And I'll tell you what happens when you don't want to know. You will definitely, at some point in life, look back and ask yourself questions as to whether you really maximize your life.
Regret will set in.
Yes, absolutely.
Foluso, this has been awesome.
Thank you for having
it's
me.
been
So
really,
short.
really awesome. Yeah, he always, you know, the time always
so
flies
fast.
because
Yes.
the conversations are usually so deep. But I think we need to do this again.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know you're super busy.
So are you.
But we have to find time to do this again because we need to kind of delve deeper.
Yeah.
But yeah, so thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I really, really hope everybody who's watched has learned something and has gained some very useful insights. And like Foluso said, there's so many ways of doing this. You can either do the Clifton strengths assessment. Honestly, it changed my life and it's still a work in progress. Or you can just go and ask your family members and tell them to give you honest answers and be prepared that you may not like some of the answers, but at least it's a step in the right direction. So this has been awesome. Thank you so much. John and Helen will be rounding off the show in a few minutes. So please stay tuned. Thank you.